What's up, y'all? Welcome to Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. WWT Live, the Monday edition. We're going to be talking about so many things. We're going to be talking about Trish Stratus, Saraya, and Kevin Nash, which we talked about before. All that and more coming up next.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hey, y'all. Happy Monday. Just let me, I think it's not me, but it might be me. I'm beyond tired. I don't know why. It's just weird. But I'm not alone because it'd be really a sleepy show if that were the case. Mr. Professor, fresh off of Vegas, is in the building. What's up?
Hey, how are you? Golly, that West Coast heat is different.
Is it?
Vegas, listen, it was a literal 110 or 111, 112 degrees in Vegas. I landed there and it was like 2 a.m. and we were trying to get something to eat and it was 92 degrees at 2 a.m. I was like, nah, this is
Well,
right.
Vegas is the desert though. I mean, LA is pretty bad. Yeah, LA is hot. I'm lying. LA is hot. But when I avoid the heat at all times, and it was kind of funny. We were doing a meeting this morning, and one of my coworkers apartment. And the bad thing about LA is a lot of these places just have the AC. The AC, once you hit like 90 something, it really doesn't do anything. So thankfully, after my last place, because I remember my last place was just always just hot. It was just like. This is what there's even no point in turning on the AC. So this place I have central air.
Oh, okay.
Game changer. I never leave my house.
Yeah, for sure. There. I understand. But yeah, it blew hot air when the wind blew. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's hot. It's hot.
And how do you wear all those outfits though? And your picture is stuck too.
Inside.
Oh, okay.
Inside, and there was AC in there, and literally it was outside to go to the car and come back. But yeah, all that stuff was inside, and thankfully it was all kind of light stuff. It looked heavy, but it was light, so it made it all right. But fun time had by all.
There it is. And then Cedric, new form of adulting. We're learning new things here out in these streets. How are you doing?
I'm hungry. It's Monday, I don't even want to touch that. Let's not give them more ammo in the chat. But like,
but I have a question though.
Oh boy,
I have a question. So,
I literally didn't know. Like, I'm so used to it. Like
Yeah, but don't you invite people over? And people love, Oh, okay.
Yes. No.
We solved that problem.
We limit the amount of people that know where I live.
Oh, you're like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Wasn't there? I heard something about certain friends who never knew where their friends lived. I was trying to remember. There were some celebrities who did not know where they've been friends for like 20 years and didn't know where they lived.
I think I heard about that in a Vince Staples interview.
Was it? Okay. I couldn't remember who, but I was just like, oh, that's so interesting. Oh,
yeah, but we're not talking about friends. We're talking about friends.
Right.
I don't know how
I hear you.
I don't know how we got here from a battery, but but like you guys have my word. Even JD, I see JD in the chat right now. I'll change the battery today. But I don't know how we got down this path, but
this is great.
Santana, so shout out to JD. Santana in the chat saying nobody knows where she lives, which I definitely believe with Santana.
I totally believe that.
Bosa's in the chat, Ron's in the chat, Cool Gamer is in the chat as well.
I literally do not notice it. Like, see, like
there it is.
now I notice it, but like I just thought it was like an apartment feature this past year. Like it was like going off. All right, let you know I'm safe. I don't know. Like
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
All right.
hey, don't judge me. I live a very busy life. I live a very busy life.
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. All right. All right. We've done our damage at the beginning of the show. Santana's saying wrap it up. Let's talk to the next story. So what do we got?
Rope.
Well, let's start with some AEW news as Soraya has become pretty vocal about her future plans in AEW. One of the things that she wants to do is to become a champion, and she wants all of the gold. She recently spoke with Alex McCarthy at Inside the Ropes, and she's clear she wants to have a world title match at All In at Wembley Stadium. Here's what she said. She said, I can't go into another company without becoming the champion. So Jamie Hayter's next, and she wants to have a Wembley match for a championship, whether it's taking the championship off of Jamie or a friendly match with Tony Storm. She wants to take all of the titles. So it's very interesting. She also said that she wants to do a blood and guts match with the Outcasts versus the Originals. So that'd be very interesting to see what would happen for Soraya and if indeed she's ready to become a world champion in AEW. I think that might be very, very interesting.
I feel like, I mean, we were talking about this before, and we'll save that other conversation for when we talk about it. But it's kind of like, no shade to AEW. And I was listening to some reality show. It's like when you say that, it is shade. But when you come from a company like WWE, right, and you move to AEW, you kind of expect certain things. It's kind of like if you go to like a D1 school and then you for whatever reason you go to a D2 school or an NAIA school, you kind of expect that, like, hey, like let's, we don't need to talk about this, but this is what should be happening. And with a lot of people's cases who've moved from WWE to AEW, more on the women's side of things, I feel like it's not happening as it should. And it's almost kind of like, not with everybody, with certain people, it's like, well, why did you bother leave? And some people did get let go, but why did you bother leave WWE?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with you, and I think we've seen it more so on for the women than the men. I think the men have been treated a little bit differently relative to championships. But with that said, it has been interesting for the women's trajectory in AEW, particularly those that have come from WWE. If we're honest, I mean, outside of Tony Storm, the only one to hold really any gold would be Athena, and that's Ring of Honor gold. So that's interesting. I'm not sure if there's a point that's trying to be proven or, if there's a different kind of pecking order. I also am curious to see if we think Soraya needs a world title at this point in her career. I'm not sure. Again, I don't know the full extent of her injury recovery. I do know she has not had very many matches in AEW. She's been more of an advisor, someone standing outside of the ring or even beating somebody up, but she's certainly not been kind of in the ring on a regular basis. So I'm not sure what that means for Soraya. And again, if her being champion is even necessary.
That's what I thought it was. I would love to see the blood and guts match. I think that would be very interesting for the women's division to have a match of that caliber. But I thought it was more. If I was wondering why she hadn't had a belt strapped to her already, with her being in the company for this period of time, I would think that the way they introduced her being more of a vocal outlet for the brand after leaving WWE, that she would have had a belt by now. But I thought it was more so them bringing her along slowly in lieu of like her injury history, which is why she doesn't work such a I don't want to say a strenuous schedule, but doesn't work so many program matches. I think that's really what it boils down to, is her health is why they don't have a title on her right now. But I can definitely see why she would want to hold every bit of gold before her time at AEW is done. I think that just makes sense for her and her brand.
Yeah, but didn't she get full clearance for medical though? Or that's what I was under the assumption of.
Yeah, I think she was clear to wrestle, but I don't know if that also means that she's clear to wrestle and clear to wrestle a champion schedule could kind of be two different things. And I'm not sure if she's ready for that. I don't know. I don't have any proof one way or the other. But the fact that she's
like a Jade Cargill champion schedule seems doable.
But the fact that she hasn't had has she had 10 matches yet?
I think there was something that came out where there were certain things that she couldn't do in the ring at one point. I want to say it was earlier this year. Where there were certain moves from behind that were not green lighted yet. So I mean, I think there's still a lot of precaution around her, which is probably why they moved over to having Tony be champion in that group instead of Saraya.
Because I did think that was weird that Tony got it over Saraya. I certainly thought Saraya would have done that.
Well, we'll see what happens with that.
Honestly.
So Bosa saying Saraya is cleared, but the thing is, Tony Khan only liked her for a short bit. There were rumors, but never confirmed that at Forbidden Door 2 it was going to be Mercedes versus Saraya. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. What do we got next?
So we can move over to more women's news and talk about Trish Stratus checking off more stuff on her wrestling bucket list since coming back full time. She wants to be in a cage match. She says that's not something she's never done, and she doesn't care what type of cage it is. Maybe the traditional cage or a Hell in a Cell or Elimination Chamber. She says there's so many things that they weren't allowed to do back then that she remembers that when she was hit with a chair once, everyone started freaking out. And she's like, oh my God, can you just hit me with a chair? So now she wants a cage. So I feel like that'd be a good end to her program with Becky if they were to do that in Hell in a Cell. I think that would be like a natural culmination if they get to that point, if that's something that she's clamoring for. Do you think that Trish can pull that off, though? I felt like the Money in the Bank was rough when Trish was taking bumps. I was cringing a little bit.
I mean, I think she can. Even when she kind of did go away for a bit, one thing you can say about her is that she's always stayed in shape. And yeah, I know there's a difference between ring shape and like working out, but there's some wrestlers and athletes who once like if they don't have anything on their schedule, they're not doing anything. And that you can't say about Trish. Okay. And I feel like because she stayed in shape, she knows her body well enough that she like asking for these things. She kind of knows that, you know, it's what her body's going to be like, what it's going to put her body through. Like, why ask for it? She knows she can't handle it. So I think if she's asking for these things, she knows that like, I can do these things. So, and then another thing too, I was watching the A&E biography on China and all the things she was able to do versus a lot of the other women. So considering Trish's first round, she wasn't as, you know, they were putting like a lot of stress on their bodies, but not like the female wrestlers that are putting, not like the female wrestlers of today. So I feel like with that comparison, like she should still be good to go. If she was taking chair shots and doing all the crazy stuff that the men were doing when she first started out, I think it would be a different tune. But you know, considering everything, I think she's good. Like, why would you ask for something if you feel like you couldn't do it?
I feel like it's because she feels like she has something to prove, that her generation isn't like, you know, the women of today. And that's what my fear is, because it's not the fact that we don't believe she can do it. It's the fact that she's 47 trying to do it. And the wear and tear on your body years ago versus now is going to be way different to recover from stuff like that.
But
how old is Edge though? Edge is 49.
I'm trying to think. Has he done anything that aggressive? Like
what?
I'm being dead serious. Has he done anything like super aggressive coming back would make you be like, yo, outside like a dive to outside of the ring or something of that nature?
the WrestleMania that nobody attended, he had a 35-minute match where he ended up on the top of a truck. I mean, like, Edge was doing
Ambulance.
all kinds of crazy things. And to that end, Edge had far more wear and tear on his body when he came back than she did. I mean, remember, his career was over because his neck was jacked up. I think the case for Trish Stratus, you know, the number 47 doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. In the case of a Trish Stratus, who really only had a 7, maybe 8-year wrestling career, and that career wasn't super strenuous on her body, meaning, she didn't have a cage match. She didn't have a ladder match. She didn't have those kinds, and they didn't have long matches during that time. So her body and all of the work that she's done since then, when I see Trish in the ring, I don't see someone who's past their prime at all. She very much looks like she could fit in with the women's wrestlers of today. And I think for her, she wants to be able to prove to herself and to others, hey, I was able to do all of these things. I just wasn't given the opportunity to. So I think that's a much different conversation. And again, seeing Trish in the ring, it's very clear she can still go. She can still hang with everybody else. And I think she wants to be able to say, these are the things that I did in my career. I did them. And the only reason that they weren't done is because the opportunities weren't presented.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like when she came back the first time, that was kind of a test run with the scheduling and all the things. And I think this time, why not? Like, her kids are older. I'm willing to bet, obviously, she's in a position where she can say certain things, like, as far as scheduling. Right. But yeah, I definitely just don't believe that she would put herself in a position to say yes to something and then not do it well. Because on top of that, if she gets all the things that she's asking for and she does a terrible job on it, like, we have different type of wrestling fans. You'll have wrestling fans who, like, no matter what she does, they're going to stick by her side. Then you got wrestling fans who are very critical of the craft. And the last thing you want is, like, okay, because then they're going to put all the stereotypes on her. Oh, well, you should have stayed retired. You should, like, you're old, you're this, you're that. And I don't think she would put herself in that position, without having, like, true faith, like, I can do all this stuff and make it look good. Because it's one thing to do it and then not make it look good. And, like, nobody wants that backlash unless they want it, meaning that unless they've done it on purpose versus, no, this was a terrible match because you couldn't do it. I really think that she believes, and everybody else, if it does happen, believes that she can accomplish it and make it look good. So
I agree.
And Bosa saying, and Andrew's talking to AEW, because if you remember his 24 he filmed went into a different direction. It went from, let's see how he's doing at doing after WWE to, holy crap, he's back. So there's that. It's not.
That's funny.
JD.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, you don't deserve it, but just because.
That's funny.
What do we got next?
Oh boy. Well, this weekend was Impact Wrestling's Slammiversary pay-per-view. And there were some champions crowned and some other things that happened, which we might get into. But one of the things, since we're talking about Backlash, if we talk about Slammiversary Backlash, it's that there are two people who are part of Impact Wrestling who are apparently and reportedly done. According to a report from PW Insider, Nick Aldis and Zicky Dice are finished with Impact Wrestling. They had some tapings on Sunday in Windsor following Slammiversary, and after that, they're done. So Nick Aldis fought for the World Championship against Alex Shelley and lost that pay-per-view. And then he wrestled at the tapings yesterday against Eric Young. That should air this Thursday. And then Zicky Dice took on Johnny Swinger yesterday as part of a Loser Leaves Impact match at the tapings. So it's really interesting because if you remember, for Nick Aldis, of course, his first run with Impact and TNA that ended in 2017. He obviously went over to the NWA, became a world champion, became a free agent, of course, at the top of this year, and found his way to Impact in April. So to think that he's had a 3-month run with Impact is extremely shocking, to say the least. Zicky Dice, of course, has been with Impact for a bit longer. Zicky Dice kind of never got out of the blocks that, in terms of what I think he could have done in Impact compared to what he did in the NWA as a former TV champion there and what he's done in independent spaces as well. So I think this gets really, really interesting to see where both of them will end up. I certainly thought Nick Aldis, who easily inserted himself into the world title picture, would have been around for a lot longer. I did not expect a 3-month run from Nick Aldis. So it's intrigued to see what could happen next. But yeah, apparently Nick Aldis and Zicky Dice are finished with Impact.
Yeah, I just saw that post, so that there might be, and these reports, you have to treat them with a grain of salt. They're WWE showing interest in Nick, but we don't know how true that is. Do you think what do you think his reasons are for leaving Impact Wrestling?
Sid, did you want to tackle that before I say anything?
I feel like, honestly, we talked about Nick Aldis like my first week here at WWT. So it wasn't that long ago. It was like literally April that we were looking at his free agency. So I think it's just more so like him wanting to keep his options open. Maybe him knowing like where he's at in his career, like his window of prime years left. He didn't want to devote too much time to one company. Maybe he had offers out there that he could field right now around the end of the summer. So whether that be WWE, AEW, or one of the other companies, I think that's what this has. That's everything. Maybe sign that short-term agreement was in his best interests.
Maybe. Well, I mean, the good thing about Impact, which I do like, it's kind of one of those things where they don't force you into something. It's like one of those things, like if you love Impact and you love everything that's happening, you're just going to stay, and they're going to allow you to stay as long as the relationship makes sense. And if you don't, you're not going to be like, they'll allow you to go, which is, I think a lot of companies should employ that type of methodology, because then you're going to have happier people, and there's less likely chance that when they leave, they're going to say terrible things about your company. So that's
Right.
one thing. But I always feel like Impact is one of those things where it's just it's a super dope company, one, and that if you decide to leave, there's no problem in coming back years later, as long as you can, do the job. So, I mean, good luck to him, and good luck to him, and see what he's going to do. And if he's going to show up at WWE, do you think there is space for him at WWE?
I think that's very interesting. The concept of Nick Aldis in WWE is interesting. I'm not going to say he doesn't fit. I'm just trying to see exactly where. I don't see him immediately in the world title picture, obviously. I wonder how he will be presented and how he will be received as well. That I think is going to be interesting. So yeah, it's up in the air. And I think the other interesting part, and we'll probably get to a conversation about this in a little bit, is, when you look at like an LA Knight, for instance, and how he came from the NWA, and his time in NXT was relatively short, but his time there really doesn't even compare to what he's been doing on the main roster these days. So, that's the hard thing, is you can be over in other places, but the WWE is such a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
What are the kinds of things that you're prepared to do to be able to get over? And no matter what kind of character you're presented with, even if it is the character of yourself, you still have to do the work to get over. I think you could make the argument that in the NWA, it was much easier for Nick Aldis, because he was the guy. and there really wasn't anybody that could come close to comparing to him, kind of the big fish, little pond. What happens when you get into a different land of the giants in WWE, where the personalities are big and where these guys are already over and things are already, it's not like you're coming to save the WWE at this point,
Right.
where you were coming to save the NWA, and you could take that into a place like Impact, but it's not going to hit the same in WWE. Not saying he won't be successful. I'm just interested to see what that would look like for him.
Yeah, you have to wonder if somebody that's as seasoned as him is probably NXT. He's probably too rich to go and like through an NXT funnel. So that's why I don't know. Top of mind, I wouldn't know how we fit into the landscape just off the rip like that.
Well, I don't think he'd be too rich to go to NXT funnel. I think it really, because you have people who definitely talent wise, they didn't necessarily need to go to NXT for what NXT used to be. I think they're really trying to morph it into a legitimate channel, which is what, the reason why they're on television. But with NXT, it really be dependent if they choose to put him there, what the storyline would be to make sense. Because, obviously he's seasoned, he's been in the game forever. So, will they know where he's been? And, WWE is, they don't do that with everybody, but with some people, they're like, oh, this person came from this promotion, or they've been doing this overseas or whatever. So it really be dependent on what the story would be. But we'll see what happens with that. Now that leads me to one of the questions we were actually talking about before. So congratulations to Trinity for winning the championship. And we were just talking about that with AEW. As far as people coming from bigger brands like WWE and going to, a different brand and knowing, their pedigree and all this other stuff. Do you think it's too soon for her? And let me preface this. I love me some Trinity and I'm happy for her. But do you think it was too soon for her to get the belt?
Said, I'm going to let you run with that one first.
Nah, I feel like it works. Everybody wins here because it's going to, obviously it's a big talking point. It draws more eyes on the brand and that's what you want. So her having the belt, her carrying the brand now, kind of being the face of that brand can only be a positive thing. I think if you just look at it through a smaller lens as it's too soon, it's like not giving the credibility to the title that much, When in reality, you want her as the face of your brand in the first place.
Yeah, I saw this comment from Shadow Ranger. So I saw Trinity's tweets over the pro tweets over the past year. I'm wondering how many of those people tweeting actually ordered Slammiversary. I kind of think that I'm curious about that too, but I feel like, let's say we had 100 people when it first was announced that Trinity was going over to Impact, right? Those 100 people, let's say out of those 100 people, 75 are now following Impact on social media and stuff like that. And then out of those amount of people who would actually buy the product for one person, I think you're getting maybe 40 or 50 people. Like, because you're not going to have, for everybody who loved Trinity and now you're getting this product for free with WWE. And then if you had the package, they really kind of spoiled us with, when they had the network and now you have Peacock, like you don't have to, pay the $59.99. It's a lot easier to watch those pay-per-views. So for the AEWs and the Impacts, like, I think you have the fans, but then you have people who want to invest in the product. So I'm willing to bet it's like a, 40% uptick as far as people buying it. But, I haven't seen the numbers. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But yeah. Nikki saying, I'm happy for her. Should have ended in DQ, keeping down a champ. But for now, yeah, I feel like, yeah, we'll see. I kind of agree that there should have been a little bit more of a chase for us to really want her to. I think you had said that to Professor before we got on air. We kind of knew it was going to happen, but I feel like there should have been some type of chase for us to almost get annoyed at Impact, because like we all know it's going to happen. So when you're going to do it versus it happening too soon. So, you know, but we'll see what's going to happen. The Impact is never short of good storylines. So, you know, I'm sure they have something in the banks for us to watch.
Yeah, I'm definitely of the crew, and I think I said this a couple of months ago that it's too soon. And it's too soon for a few reasons. First of all, I feel like Impact's women's division has historically been one of the best women's divisions in the business, bar none. I think NXT's women's division certainly has gotten a lot of eyes and a lot of credit and has been very good, probably since 2014 or so. But you can date back to 2008 in the days of Awesome Kong and Gail Kim and these folks who were crushing it then. And Impact has always had a high level relative to their women's division. I feel like Trinity didn't get the opportunity in WWE to battle a lot of what many would consider the top tier talent there. You know, her match against Charlotte was clutch, you know, but she didn't get the opportunity to have high profile matches against the rest of the 4 horsewomen, right? She didn't get that opportunity to main event these pay-per-views and things like this. So I think her coming into Impact, who has arguably the best women's division in the business, there should have been a march to take on these women before getting to Deonna Purrazzo. There were a lot of other women that I think she should have had a chance to battle in a non-title kind of scenario to show, hey, don't just give it to me because I'm from WWE. I'm going to show you why I should have had it in WWE. You know, I don't think that happened. So now we're in a situation, and in terms of when it should have happened, I think October. I think the October pay-per-view, Bound for Glory, which is another one of their massive pay-per-views, should have been the moment when they pulled the trigger for her, giving her a few more months to really cook, get, you know, kind of that Lex Luger approach that was taken where, man, he missed it. I really want to see him get it. I really want to see her get it. She gets it the first time out. The challenge now is, okay, how long does this title run work? You know, and who does she end up beating? So I don't know. I think now we get to see what her title run looks like, who is there for her to battle. And then I always feel some kind of way when someone from another company comes in and you hand them everything. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like discounting the people that you already have. Mm-hmm. And so, not that Trinity doesn't deserve to be champion. Like you said, we knew she was going to be champion. It was inevitable. But 2 months in versus 5 months in. But hey, just my 2 cents.
Yeah. But out of all the brands for this to happen, Impact to me is probably, as far as women go, probably the best brand for it to happen for her, because we know that there's going to be some type of storyline that's going to make sense versus, you know, other places where they just put it on there and it's like, well, make it make sense. And like, we're not, and we don't care about your feelings.
And they're going to be great matches too.
Right. So there's that. So with that all being said, just a discussion. You know, I am definitely happy for her. I like all the pictures, all the stuff. I am definitely pro all that as well. If you do want to check out the post show for Slammiversary, we do have that up. Nikki and Santana did that. So definitely check that all out as well. And then our post show for AEW, that's up as well. So check out all of that stuff. But yeah, congratulations to Trinity. And Nikki saying shout out to Kenny King and Leo Rush. So shout out to them as well. Shout out to Ricky Starks and Will Nightingale. So, and I definitely concur, Bosa. I think we can all collectively say we are definitely happy for Trinity. Well deserved, especially over all the drama that's happened over the last, even prior to her leaving the company, probably the last, let's say 5 years or so. The ups and downs. So with that being said, what do we got next?
Straight from the category of wait, there's more. The bloodline gets deeper with the debut of Zilla Fatu, the son of Umaga, who made his professional wrestling debut this past weekend for Booker T's Reality of Wrestling promotion. He comes out and says before going into it, he was really nervous and just wanted everything to be protected and not to have any hiccups. He said God blessed him that day and he didn't have any hiccups, but he feels like he can do way better. So another member of the bloodline making their wrestling debut. I feel like we need to just have like one big versus one day and take the bloodline family members and put them against the Wayans and just see who come out on top.
Yeah, it's
Never-
great. Like,
The never-ending family.
it is. Like, I wonder. Something happens to like the little girl or something, and oh wait, am I frozen or you guys are frozen? I think I'm frozen.
Yeah, I think you're.
Oh, there we go.
back. You're back.
Something happens to like somebody on the playground, and they're like, "I'm gonna get my sister," and then they really get like 20 people from the family. Like that's what it feels like. Like there's just always another new member, and God bless them. I love that. Especially so many family members in the business. There was The Rock was on this podcast. It's called The Pivot, where he's talking about his daughter. Getting into wrestling and how she told him about that. So I mean, God bless them. Do you? Why not?
It reminds me of an old interview I saw. Like this is just going to age me, but like on BET when Master P was talking about his family, it was like, oh yeah, you want to make some money? There, go to the studio. It's like everybody has the same career path coming out of this family. It's very interesting.
And it's okay for it's so funny because at one point a lot of people are talking about nepotism and how it's bad, and it's like, why is it bad? Like, so you just want people to struggle? Like, if somebody is helped out in a certain opportunity and they're humble enough to know that they're lucky that they have to they're able to get that help, then great. But they're not humble enough and they get that and they squander it, then that's their problem. But
don't you want to see it happen? I kind of want to see it happen in another industry, though. I want to see billboards for like the bloodline real estate agent or the car salesman or something like that. Just market in another lane.
Well, but to that end,
real estate
we just don't hear about those other family members that are doing other things. Obviously, everybody's not in wrestling, and those who aren't are making a living doing something else. But I mean, I'm really not mad at this at all. I mean, some people lived through the Hart dynasty, and all the people that the Hart family had. If you lived in Canada, every time you turned around, there was a Hart that was wrestling. Mm-hmm. I think the issue shows up where can they actually get it done in the ring, right? Like your family name for some people can open a door, but if you can't get it done, go back and watch some stories on the Von Erichs. They had some great brothers, but not all of their brothers could wrestle, and their bodies didn't all hold up for it. And so I think we've got this family, their bodies hold up. We've seen that we like a lot of these folks individually. They happen to now be across multiple promotions and they're getting it done and they're finding great success. I cannot be mad at that. I think that's a great thing.
Very much so. And then that kind of brings us to our next story, which is kind of a tie-in as well. Who wants to take that one?
For sure. So Zilla certainly has just debuted, and in his debut, he was asked an interesting question in terms of where he's siding with this bloodline civil war. He spoke to Muscle Memory, and in there, he picked naturally Team Jey Uso. He says, I'm just more built on respect than loyalty. So that's what's going on. Roman disrespected Jay and Jimmy. So it's going to be interesting to see, we haven't talked to a lot of or heard from a lot of the family members to see where they fall in this whole bloodline war. But, seeing people not side with the tribal chief is equally interesting. So I think that'll be fun to see if they start talking to the other family members who sides where. And kind of reminds me of when Bret Hart and the British Bulldog fought in the UK for the Intercontinental Champion, seeing how divided the family was in that particular space. That makes for great television, and it creates great tension as well. I think we all kind of know what it's like to have family members on different sides of the coin and seeing who sides with who. So I think this will be fun to watch.
I wonder if they have like a family Zoom meeting, because I think that everybody knows that the question's gonna come up, like regardless of where you are and what company you're with. So I wonder if there's like a family group meeting that's just kind of like, this is what we're doing. Like
Yeah.
this is the direction you should go. This is the direction you should go, or not. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
that would be quite interesting. JD saying wrong answer. Always go where the money is. But we all know Roman Reigns has said this a while ago, that eventually when he's done, like he's gonna be done for a while. So is the money really with Roman? If you know that the end is coming eventually, it might be a year from now or 2 years from now.
We got to define what the end is. I feel like that's just going to be like a brief hiatus to come back on the even bigger tear, if that's the case. But
I have a feeling once he's done, he's going to be done for at least, we won't see him for at least a year. Because he's been like, I mean, yes, he takes his breaks, obviously, for health reasons and because he's the top dog, essentially. But I don't see him losing everything and then coming back a month later.
no, not a month, but even a year flies by when you think about it with television programming. That's what I'm saying. If he's going to go away, I think a year is just too short to say that we're going to forget about Roman and then somebody else is going to be a huge moneymaker within his family. I don't see that.
Right.
I think he's still right now the brand for that respective family in any promotion. So it is interesting that he's saying that. I think that's more of like a age gap type of thing. It's like, oh yeah, Jay's a younger person. I connect with him more, so I roll with Jay. But the Zoom thing is interesting because I know everybody does have to kind of have their talking points media wise ready, because it is the biggest storyline in wrestling. So I wonder how they do kind of field that to make sure it does look divisive even on the inside. Hey, bro.
Well, that's true. Or a WhatsApp group chat. So
That's so funny.
I mean, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, but then also speaking of kind of nepotism, I mean, Roman was in, I forgot what movie it was, with The Rock.
Yeah.
Is that something that he's like
Behind
actually? Yeah, is that something he's actually considering? Because there are people who like want to step their toe into it. It's like, I'll do a couple roles, but they don't want to go full into it. So I wonder where he lies on that, meaning that, you know, The Rock has a whole production company. Like, you know, is this something he wants to transition into, where now he's kind of on a Rock schedule where he'll go and come, or a John Cena schedule where, you know, he's not going to be there full time when he does come back and stuff like that. So that's another thing to consider as well, because it is, even though he doesn't necessarily do as much wear and tear on his body, it's still a lot. Like, it's still like, regardless if you're traveling in a nice spacious plane, or I highly doubt he's, you know, on the Southwest in seat number 32, but it's still a lot traveling wise. It's still a lot to do on the body. So, you know,
bags still fly free.
Right. Two of them.
Can you imagine like them and the Usos in Southwest, like just all three just shoulder to shoulder? Like, those airplane seats are just ridiculous. Like, it's crazy. But you know, we'll see what happens. With that being said, what do we got next?
So from the pages of Steve Urkel's Did I Do That? Kevin Nash has apparently apologized for his comments about LA Knight. So if you'll remember, about a week or so ago, maybe even 2 weeks, we were talking about how Kevin Nash had been very, very critical on his podcast of LA Knight, calling him a, quote, absolute ripoff of The Rock. And then when social media kind of had an uproar, he asked the question, why didn't he get over anywhere else? And probably the Nickies and others of the world kind of reminded him that LA Knight was a world champion over an Impact. And so now he's come back on said podcast, Click This, to have a different commentary about LA Knight. And so he says, if LA Knight, if he's the chosen one, if he's the people's champ, then he's the people's champ, and it doesn't matter to me. If his segments do a great number and it helps the WWE, in which I'm a stockholder, and it makes my buddy Paul's life easier, then get over. It was just one of those things where I don't watch SmackDown. So, dude, I don't know who you are, and I apologize. But some of us that are in professional wrestling actually watch sports, watch film, occasionally read a book. I do other things besides watch wrestling. There's 394 hours of wrestling on television a week. I just can't do it. End quote. Oh, Kevin Nash. Oh, Kevin Nash.
But that's the thing, though. It's kind of one of those things where because he has a platform, because who he was, it's not like, you know, I guess no shade to us. It's not like us, right? It's Kevin Nash that people are gonna take one sentence and not apply that. You know, he is right. Like there is a lot of wrestling, and you know he might not watch every little thing because that's what he's come from. Like I remember when I retired from track, I hadn't watched track in years just because it was all consuming for me, and I just needed a break. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he doesn't say anything or give his opinion, he's gonna be like, well, he doesn't really say anything about wrestling. But then if he does, now you're gonna crucify him for. So Well,
the problem is though, you have a whole podcast on wrestling, right? So you have a whole podcast and a whole platform talking about this.
Right.
So my thought is this, if you are unfamiliar with a subject, you do one of two things. You either study up on it or you avoid it until you know something about it.
That's different.
No.
You know why it's different?
That's a journalistic integrity thing.
Exactly. Podcasting and journalism, two different things.
Well, I guess you guys know which side I come from. So
yes. I agree. Journalism is when you look at I constantly, when I'm like looking at or watching documentaries or whatever, and I see something, I always have my phone next to me. I was watching, I think Nikki will love this. I was watching Escape in the SWV
reality show.
And I was constantly looking up stuff to like fact check. Oh no, he definitely took their money. Like
yes, he did.
Yes, so I'm constantly like, I'm not taking it for what this person said versus what this person said. And I'm also looking for different reference points. I'm not going to look for that one random article. And that's the big difference that I think when people, and it's blending across all platforms, radio, television, and podcasts, because it's all kind of becoming one in some sort of way, where yes, you would expect somebody, I mean, take the Tasha K's and there's so many other podcasts that they just take with whatever one sentence that's there. So yes, what you're applying to him is journalistic integrity, that he's supposed to, okay, well, we're going to be talking about this guy, so then we're going to have to know all these things. And that might not be the case. Like he came from wrestling and he's still pretty involved in it. So it's just kind of like, well, I'm involved in it, and my one of my great friends is Triple H. So if I haven't heard of this guy, then yeah, like I think that's kind of maybe the thought process, opposed to him and Triple H having a conversation and he's heard about LA Knight or somebody else from somewhere else, and now it kind of came into those conversations. But as far as doing the due diligence for that's almost old school now when you think about it, comparing like what journalism is versus what all the other shows are now. So I agree, but I don't think people are doing that.
Yeah, I agree too, because I think where things get blurred is like journalism and media are not the same thing, especially in today's world. They're two different entities. So what Kevin did is you can say he made an honest mistake. He didn't know what was hot in the streets, and then people jumped down his throat. Because the LA Knight hive is like a really big thing. And the funny thing about LA Knight now is like they're finding all these images of where he was like the past 2 decades, like whether it was as a bodyguard or if he had like some car commercial. It's like really weird how his gravitas is raised so high in such a short period of time. But kudos for Kevin Nash for like owning it and be like, yeah, I just don't watch a lot of wrestling. It's not my fault. It's like people who are like really real sickos in the NFL offseason. They'll watch the flag football league and the
You
USFL and
said
the
real
CFL
sickos.
and the XFL. It's like you can't get your football fixed, so you find something. But I
First
get
off,
it.
the CFL is a really good league, so we'll just put that there. Just saying. I think Professor has, because he's been in that same position for a little bit. So.
No, I'm here. I was looking at
Oh,
something. I was
okay,
trying
because
to.
like I'm not like seeing you move.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit more research.
So yeah, but he did. I agree with you. He did apologize, and Nikki's saying that's why we don't comment on things we don't watch. I mean, yes, that makes sense, but in the era that we are in now, that's not what people. That's not where people get the numbers from.
So I think, and this is where lines get so blurred and things get so tricky, right? Because at this point, almost anybody can open up a podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like anyone can launch a podcast and you can say anything about these things, right? I think the question becomes, and again, I guess it becomes a matter of individual personal integrity when it comes to doing this type of thing. I mean, there are some people who will just come on, turn on their mic and say whatever as an opinion piece. And with it being an opinion piece, what's crazy is those opinions ends up being grabbed by outlets as statements of fact or what have you that turn into something different. And so it's just interesting to watch.
It is. Nikki and Santana both wanting us to talk about a few other things with very little time. So we'll do a dealer's choice. We could talk about Shotzi or Charlotte. Which one do you guys want to talk about?
I'm good. We can probably
also mention Bailey, who we can actually let you guys know that Bailey
did things quickly.
Bailey is fine. I think she got away without any major injury there.
Yeah. So that's that. Charlotte it's her 10-year anniversary from her debut in WWE, which of course that debut was on NXT, and she's done quite a bit in that 10-year time. Sometimes it doesn't feel like 10 years, but it has been 10 years, which is really crazy. And then in terms of Shotzi cutting her hair, Shotzi cut her hair to actually stand in solidarity with her sister, who is battling cancer. So pretty gutsy and amazing move, and great way to work it into a storyline, I think. So kudos to Shotzi, and quite frankly, I hope this means a great push for her, because I think that's a super gutsy move in a place like WWE where marketing is so big on your image and things like that. To do that and to work that in like that is incredible. So shout out to Shotzi, to Bailey, and to Charlotte.
Yeah, that video was shot.
It was done so well.
So it was so like they could have done it in so many different ways, and some of them could have been super cheesy. But how they did that and how Shotzi did it was incredible. Definitely had everybody buzzing.
I was gonna say, you can tell the difference with Triple H in creative versus with Vince in creative in terms of the way that these kinds of things are shot now. These things are shot in a more edgy, contemporary way, as opposed to if this had been under the Vince era, no shade, this would have been a, lose your hair kind of thing, right? It would have been done in that way. This was a very unpredictable way to do this that has great significance. So shout out to the entire creative team.
There it is. Definitely shout out to the WOW team. They're going to be coming up right after this. And then also our Raw team for our after shows. They're going to be coming up later on this evening. But with that being said, Cedric, what you going to be doing the rest of the afternoon, and where can everybody find you?
Where did that come from? All right, you can find me on Instagram at Set Is The Answer. Also, the threads, if you guys still threaten, I'm Set Is The Answer there as well. Also on the Bird app, says CEDD_SAYS. Check out my articles on dailyddt.com. Check out my journalism work on HCTV. That's Hawthorne Community Television on YouTube. Rest of the afternoon, I'll be going to the gym. I'll be changing this battery. So y'all won't be down my throat on Wednesday afternoon. The battery will be changed.
That is hilarious.
What's that, 9 volt? Double. I don't know. E-battery, 9-volt. I
You
don't
just
know.
literally take it out. You take the battery out, and then you just go to
Mhm.
Home Depot or
I
wherever.
can't remember the last time I've purchased batteries. I don't know.
We're learning so
right.
much about said. This is great.
Mhm. Yep. Mr. Professor,
Gosh.
where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Bonafide across all of the platforms. I've got some things up from my trip from Vegas. You guys can certainly check that out. You can check out my commentary work with Southern Honor Wrestling right now on IWTV. We have dropped the latest episode, which is SHW 52, where Jake the Snake is present and his new title is awarded as well. So check that out. An incredible show. You can check out all of our Battle Slam work on Fight TV and all the Nightmare Factory work on YouTube, on their YouTube channel, and then on podcasts here, there, and everywhere, including here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Oh my God. Well, make sure, said when you get those batteries, you take a picture, do a video, send it to Nikki. She's Nikki and Santana. They're helping out with social media. So you can let people know that, you've officially got the battery and that,
Changing batteries is content. That's crazy to me.
everything
Okay.
is content.
Everything is content.
Everything is
Yeah.
content. With that being
Yeah.
said, you can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. Thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely check out all of our shows and follow us on all platforms. We're in Threads too. I don't know. I don't know if Threads is going to be around. It's very it's interesting, but we'll see what happens. Other than that, we will see you on Wednesday. Ciao, y'all. Hey peeps, TK Trinidad here, boss lady of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I want to say thank you so much for watching, because you've got millions of options. Plus, you don't have to worry about sharing your password to check us out. But while you're here, hopefully you know we have so many more shows to watch, like Turnbuckle Glam, Raw post-show, WoW post-show, AEW Dynamite post-show, Women's Wrestling Army post-show, NXT post-show, Impact Wrestling post-show, AEW Rampage and SmackDown Live post-show, On the Scroll, ROH post-show, WWT Live, plus all of our interviews with the hottest women's wrestlers in the game. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com and follow us on all social media platforms at www.talkpod, and make sure to spread the word. That means send this to the group chat. Yes, even the person with the green bubble. Thanks again so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.